Okay, so we've just started the recording. Anyway, here we go. Hi, my name is Jonathan Fisher, the host and moderator of the Pacific Northwest Railroad Archive bi-weekly Zoom meeting. I'm glad that everybody can be here today. We've got a really big show, shall we say, and I'm very excited to have Kathy Goeddel and Trent Stetz, and they're going to be, Kathy is from the Washington Park and Zoo Railway in Portland, Oregon. So this is just a very interesting program that we have today. I just want to
we are the friends. We are the friends of the Washington Park and Zoo Railway.
Friends of, yes, indeed. Yes. Thank you very much. I just want to quickly go over the schedule of some of the upcoming events that we have coming up at the Pacific Northwest Railroad Archive online programming. March 24th, Gordon Glattenberg, who's here in the audience today. Gordon is a famous photographer, lives in Southern California. We will be looking at Gordon's photographs of Canada. Great presentation. I've already seen it. Spoiler alert. So you can register to attend that. It will be on Zoom, and that is on the Pacific Northwest Railroad Archive website. There's a sign-up link there for it. March 27th, we're going to have a speaker from the Oregon Rail Heritage Center. So we've got two Oregon shows actually three right in a row, because the following one is Trent with a yet to be disclosed presentation topic. April 24th, we're going to be live, folks, and we're going to be doing a Jack Christensen program live from the Highline Heritage Museum. We're going to have Jack and Gary, and we're going to be talking about train stuff. May 22nd, Christy Lake from the Northwest Railroad Museum will be here. And 6/5, I've got Dan Hegstad from Brainerd, Minnesota, talking about trains. A very interesting program. So at this point, looks like I've got my screen share enabled, and I'm going to share my screen. And I've got, Kathy, can you see this okay?
You betcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, Kathy Goeddel, I'll leave it to you and Trent to take it away.
So we're here today to share the story about the Washington Park and Zoo Railway. And Trent and I are teaming up. Trent's one of our historians, and I'm the president of the Friends of the Washington Park and Zoo Railway. And so we'll tell you about where the train came from and what we're trying to do to restore it and bring it back to its former glory. So Trent, if you'd like to kick things off.
Yep. Next slide.
Uh-oh, hang on here.
Uh-oh, that's what.
Come on. Here we go. There. Did that rotate? Can you see it?
It rotated,
okay?
yes.
Beginnings of the Zoo Railway, mine says. So take it away.
This is a title of an unpublished book, Mile of Smiles, from Edward Miller. And Edward Miller was a news executive and editor of the Oregonian, and he was drafted into the 1951 Portland Zoo Commission when the zoo was undertaking a move up the hill a little bit. But I love his words here: miles of smiles, a triumph of soot, noise, and laughter. And the quote here that I picked from his work, he was kind of the amateur historian too for a long time of the Zoo Railway. Most of his records are now in the Pacific Northwest Archives, which is most of the pictures you'll see in the historic section came from our archives that I pulled out and scanned. But his quote here: the Zoo Railway is big enough to become a valued civic institution and an authentic railroad that offers a fine ride. It looks, sounds, feels, weaves, clicks, and smells like a big counterpart. And to me, that is the main kind of core part of the Zoo Railway in Portland. It is like a real railroad. So we'll get into a little bit more of that. Next slide. It was a 30-inch narrow gauge railroad at the time when they were in the 50s here, late 50s, when they're working about designing this railroad into the zoo, they thought, you know, a 24-inch gauge was a little too narrow, and a 36-inch gauge was a bit too much for the zoo. You know, Disneyland is a 36-inch gauge, and Cedar Point's a 36-inch gauge. Other places, amusement parks are a little bigger. So they settled on a 30-inch gauge for the railroad, which actually comes from, as it says there, the American Mining Congress standards. So the mining industry used 30-inch narrow gauge railroads. So there was equipment already available, 30-pound steel rail, the number 5 turnouts. And then when they were designing the railroad, they just said, our minimum curvature is going to be 75 feet. The maximum grade is going to be 3%. So they really tackled this as putting in a real railroad that's 30 inches in gauge. And this was going to be situated in the Portland West Hills. And it was up the hill, like I said, from the previous zoo. The zoo has been around since 1887 in Portland, but they were moving to a new location up the hill in Washington Park. So they designed this as they were designing the zoo. And it was originally called the Portland Zoo Railway. There was the logo that they chose for the railroad. So yeah, they were really treating this as a real railroad. Next slide. How do you fundraise for this railroad? This is one of my favorite ways to fundraise, right? Half comes from someplace and half comes from someplace else. So yeah, there was a $4 million City of Portland zoo levy at the time in the late 50s to build this new zoo, of which they put about $275,000 aside for the zoo railway from that original levy. The other half of this construction funding came from 25,000 individuals in the community who sold these little dollar stock certificates, which also included a ride on the railroad when it was constructed. And of course, there was also 100 local firms that also provided support, both donations and in kind. But the thing that really struck me here was the big community outpouring between the local companies and the individuals to build this railroad. Was quite the thing at the time. Next slide. So here we are, it's underway, it's 1958, and we're starting to build the railroad. And you can see in this picture at the left, yeah, this looks like a traditional railroad here. Ties, plates, spikes, working on the roadbed. This is a real railroad. The picture on the left shows a little bit of their plans, which most came to fruition, about how they built the railroad in the lower left right around the new zoo, and then the future plans off into Washington Park. Next slide. So here it is a little bit later in 1958. See, they're working away on this railroad. And you can see, yeah, they had a lot of support from the local railroads as well in the design and construction of the railroad. I can see in the lower right, hey, look, they got some viaducts and overpasses, bridges throughout the portion of the zoo that was yet to be finished in 1958. Next slide. What do I run on this railway? So I got the track work underway. What do I need something to run on it. And as Kathy was mentioning a little bit earlier, this was kind of the fan favorite of what the zoo railroad locomotive should look like. And this was built in 1958. It was a 5/8 scale replica of the Aero train, which was also from the mid-50s. It was locally designed by Northwest Marine Iron Works and built by the Hirschberger Company. So you can see in the lower portion there some of the original construction photos, and the lower right one shows it almost finished at the time. But that upper right shows is that's that 1956 railway age cover photo of what the GM Aero train was look like. So this was the kind of the state-of-the-art rail transportation in the mid to the late 50s, and so that's what the zoo railway first locomotive was modeled after. Next slide. Oh, and it's some little bit of a detail. It was a 140 horsepower. It's now 66 years old. It had some updates since then. The little graphic along the bottom shows you that it had originally 4 cars, but another car was added slightly later. And then the last car was modified to look like a dome car and contained a wheelchair lift. But the lower right picture shows them constructing the cars, the kind of in a matching scheme, stainless steel scheme to the Zooliner locomotive, and the lower left one's there shows it on the track in the Zoo Railway. Next slide. Okay, here we are, June 1958, and the zoo isn't even finished at this point, but they had the railroad, the first loop finished within the new zoo location. So they had a dedication on June 9th in 1958. The gentleman here is Jack Jones. He was the general manager at the time at the Northern Pacific Terminal Company. Don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's the company now called Portland Terminal Company that operates the yard and track work around Portland Union Station. But they were intimately involved at the time with the construction and the design of the railroad, as were other local railroads. So June 9th, 1958, they kicked it off even before the zoo was done. They began giving rides a couple days before that. They just couldn't wait. People wanted to ride before the official dedication day. Next slide. And then as a little aside, in 1961, the Zooliner became a railway post office. You can drop your letters, and you still can, into the Zooliner, and they get postmarked and mailed off. That's the last time I did it, was June 15th, 2019. I actually sent a postcard through the Zooliner for fun. But yeah, it also has the distinction of being one of the last railway post offices in the United States. Next slide. Okay, you can, of course, now we have one locomotive. You can't have a railroad with just one locomotive. So the next thing under consideration is like, oh, we need to have a steam locomotive. So they began design and construction in 1959 of a steam locomotive. What kind of steam locomotive should we build? Well, to me, there's nothing more characteristic than an American-style 440 steam locomotive, which is what they embarked on, and it was generally modeled after the Reno of the Virginia and Truckee Railroad in its shape. Like I said, a couple local people, George Burton, Harry Harvey, did all of these drawings. And it began service there in later 1959. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But that was the second bit of rolling stock to be constructed. Next slide. So here's some construction photos. It was actually built at that Northern Pacific Terminal Company shops in Guilds Lake area. But you see, it looks like a real steam locomotive. It's 5/8 scale again to run on the 30-inch gauge track. It is a true steam locomotive. It's oil-fired, boiler, all of the accoutrements of a normal steam locomotive. Built locally here in 1959. Next slide. And here was the first day that they fired it up was June 15th, 1959. So it was ready to go in 1959. Just as a little aside, it'll be 65 years old this upcoming June. There'll be a little bit of probably a low-key celebration at the zoo that day. June 22nd is the day chosen for that low-key celebration at the zoo. So come out and see the steam locomotive.
So how old were you when this went into service?
I was -1. I was born in 1960. I was born just a year later in June of 1960. So yeah, I was -1. So I always remember that these things are all just slightly older than I am, but it's an easy thing to remember.
There you go.
And then you can see a little diagram there. Of course, it needs to have its accompanying coaches, and it had 4 coaches built at the time to accompany the steam locomotive. So next slide. What was going on in 1959, you'll say? Well, those folks in Oregon know that that was the centennial of the Oregon becoming a state. And so they did an exposition in 1959 at the Expo Center location, where the Expo Center location is today. So immediately, instead of going to the zoo, the steam locomotive went out to the Expo Center site, and on June 20th, it made its first runs there at the Centennial Exposition. There's a couple photographs of being at the Centennial Exposition. They actually took the Zooliner out there as well in 1959, and that's those 100 days of the Centennial Exposition to run trains there. Their goal was to fundraise for the zoo and the Zoo Railway at the Centennial, and they did really well there with 300,000 riders over those 100 days of the Centennial event. So great success. Next slide. Okay, just as an aside, there is some other railway equipment that the Zoo Railway has a couple other locomotives. This number 5, the Oregon Express, if you look close in the upper right picture, the black and white picture, you can see it's like long nose forward, and currently it runs long nose backward. Over the years, it's had a lot of modification, this little diesel locomotive. As a backup locomotive for pulling the coaches around the Zoo Railway. It was actually at the zoo in 1959, where the other two were at the Centennial Exposition. So that's kind of the diesel backup. It was built in the 1940s. There's also some 2 other small switchers that they can be used. Number 3 is, and I love this cute picture here. Thanks, Kathy, of the fire train that they originally had. They don't have that tank car and caboose anymore, but they still have the locomotive number 3, and number 6 is the other kind of work locomotive out there. So yeah, there's a selection. So they have a selection of 5 locomotives there at the Zoo Railway, 30-inch gauge. Next slide. And of course, to go with all of these equipment, you need to have your coaches. And as I said earlier, the Zooliner has 5 matching coaches. The 5th one was built in the 1990s. The Steamer Oregon has 4 coaches. They're kind of a traditional, clear story roof looking coach to match the steam locomotive, late 1880s look of a steam locomotive. The Oregon Express has 2 coaches, 2 of which have that simulated grass roof, and 2 that have some other kind of looks to them. So those are some backups. There's some spare coaches as well, the blue ones that are shown there. And there's some other fun dump cars and flat cars that are available there. So there's quite a range of equipment at the Zoo Railway for the guests and to do some maintenance. Next slide. Okay, so 1959 comes to a close. They pack up the two locomotives, the Steamer and the Zooliner, and their coaches. They pack up the station that was at the Centennial Exposition, and they pack up the water tower, and they relocate that all at the zoo to continue to serve the zoo as it was expanding. There's a little graphic there in the 60s of the kind of the zoo loop, the track within the zoo. So in 1959, after the exposition done, they began service at the zoo, which at this time was mostly finished in late 1959, the Portland Zoo there. Next slide. But wait, we need to have an extension. Previously, it was just running in a loop within the zoo. In 1965, they kind of designed and scoped out an extension into Washington Park. With the help of the Southern Pacific Railroad, the SPNS, and the Northern Pacific Terminal Company. And you can see some construction photos here, working through the park with some heavy equipment to provide the basically 20-foot right-of-way that they needed for the railroad, and to do some work in gravel, and again, built just like a normal railway with the right-of-way, the foundation, the gravel, the ties, the rail. So yeah, this expanded into Washington Park here. Next slide. Now, hopefully you can see this, but the reason I chose this particular graphic of the route within Washington Park, you can see the topography that goes on there. It's built within a very hilly area, which makes for a very scenic ride through Washington Park. You see all these twists and turns, which are really great because you can see the front and the back of the train when you're riding the train. And then there's a loop at the end where the Rose Garden Station was brought in from the Centennial. So yeah, this is the route within the Washington Park. Quite scenic. just for fun, that purple line there is the adjoining road. The cyan line is the zoo railway. The lower left is where the zoo is. The upper right again is where the Rose Garden station is. But yeah, quite the interesting terrain in there. And you can see a picture at the left at both locomotives. There's some passing tracks along the way, so you can run two trains within that section as if you desire. Next slide. So in 1960, they were a little ahead of themselves. They had a golden spike ceremony in January 1960 for this expansion, and it really wasn't quite ready for riders yet. But yeah, anything for a bit of a celebration. So again, big deal. Lots of people showing up and supporting their railway here in early 1960. Next slide.
Trent, who's this general that's
I was wondering that too,
spike?
and I don't know. We'll have to
Okay.
research that.
Okay, all right.
We'll have to, yeah, because you're right. A lot of famous people took interest in the railway. They actually, the railway group, Jack Jones and Edward Miller, kind of put out a letter for folks to be an honorary board member of the Zoo Railway, and a lot of people responded positively to that, including Walt Disney and some others. But you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those folks that they extended an offer as an honorary board member of the Zoo Railway to come out for this Golden Spike ceremony.
I'd forgotten his name, but he was the head of the National Guards in Portland. And my neighbor, her father, who is still alive, Tom McKenzie, was one of the leads on the geologic chart for the National Guards. So we still have some people who actually worked on the railroad.
And again, that kind of emphasizes this whole community spirit of all these companies and groups working together to get the railroad built. You know, surveying and providing in-kind donations and for construction, things like that. Next slide, yeah. And then this is one of my all-time favorite shots of the, you know, kind of that turnaround loop in Washington Park near the Rose Garden. That's the station that was brought in from the Centennial Exposition, modified ever so slightly in length to fit into this area. You can see Portland in the upper right background there. You can see all the people milling about. I think it's cool. The Zooliner trains actually have kind of skylights in the ceiling for all their coach cars out there. But so officially it was opened. There's more than one date here, but basically May 1960 is when the paying passengers were riding the zoo loop within Washington Park. Next slide. And you just have to have a beauty shot of the steam locomotive. This was taken by Jeff Honeyman, who's the one of the engineers on the Washington Park and Zoo Railway today. And if you look, the reason I really like this, it shows the detail that went into creating this steam locomotive, which has had very little changes in its 65 years. It had some metal work done. Actually, the cow catcher's been replaced once since it was first built. But the painting on the headlight, the brass work, it's a classic looking steam locomotive, like it was intended to be, and it continues to look really, really great. Next slide. Some details here. The zoo was named the Washington Park Zoo in 1976. The Portland turned it over to the Metropolitan Service District, which we call Metro now. But at the time, the railway is still owned by the city of Portland and it's leased to Metro in that 1976 timeframe. In 1978, they renamed it the Washington Park and Zoo Railway. Kind of better reflects what it actually does because it goes from the zoo to Washington Park, right? Most railways in their name have their endpoints. Well, not quite, you know, the SPNS, but close. But that's usually the naming of a railroad or an interurban has the endpoints in it. So this makes sense. Oh, as an aside, the character is called Titus the Tiger, is the character you see in the logo there. So yeah, it was renamed the Washington Park and Zoo Railway in 78. Slight change in the logo. Next slide. And we estimate since it was since 1958 when it went into service with the zoo liner, before the zoo was finished, that over 7 million people have ridden the train. And if you talk to people, there's just generations of Oregonians who love the train, ridden the train over the years. One of the big events for the train is zoo lights in the holiday season. So they decorate up the steamer with lights, as well as a good portion of the zoo. And that's become almost a sold out tradition for the zoo and for families to come visit the zoo railway. Next slide. So that kind of what I consider the heyday of the zoo between 1960 and 2013 was they had 2 loops within the zoo and this long extra trackage out to Washington Park. But in 2013, that was all shut down. There was some major work being undertaken in the zoo. So a portion of the loop within the zoo was taken out of service for that. Actually, all of the railway was out of service for the upgrades within the zoo. But they did not press back into service the Washington Park loop, Rose Garden loop, after that remodel at the zoo, which is what Kathy's going to talk about in part 2. Oh, one thing I just realized we didn't put a slide in for the main station in the zoo. Was built purposefully there, but it was rebuilt in 2014 because the original one from 1959 was in some poor shape. So as part of this major rebuild in 2013, a new station within the zoo was constructed at the end of the zoo loop part. Next slide. Oh, this is now Kathy's going to take it away from 2013 to the present.
That's right. So we're here as Friends of the Washington Park and Zoo Railway, and the Zoo Railway needs friends. So as Trent mentioned, in 2013, the Rose Garden Loop shut down, and also the Zoo Loop inside. If you look at the diagram on the right, in the bottom corner, that red part down there, that loop inside the zoo closed, and the Zoo Loop the Rose Garden Loop going from the zoo to Washington Park Station closed. We're on a mission to bring it back. Next. So recent events, as Trent mentioned, in 2013, the line closed down. In 2014, the zoo kept the Rose Garden Loop closed. There was a small landslide that my experts say 2 of us could clean out in a day, but anyway, one crib wall failed, and the zoo decided to close it down. In the 2018 Washington Park Master Plan, the city got the idea of having a trail instead of rails because the train was no longer running on the tracks, and people think, oh gee, the gradual slope will make an accessible trail. There's some challenges with that, but we'll save that for another day. In 2018, the 2 adjacent neighborhoods and a groundswell of people went to the city council with the master plan and testified that we want the zoo train back. And the city council was supportive. City council, the mayor, and 2 of the council people love the zoo train, and it's been a beloved part of our Portland history for a long time. Crowdsourced before crowdsourcing was a thing. Our organization formed in 2019 as a not-for-profit. We were actually 2 groups. One was formed by the 2 neighborhood associations working with the historic rail groups, and the other was more of an advocate group. Anyway, it started up in 2019, and we're here today still. And for 2024, there is a new zoo bond measure going forward to the public in May, and there is no mention of the train in that bond measure. Next slide. So why restore the Rose Garden Loop? It's absolutely beloved because it's so fun. I put a post out on our website asking folks for their memories, and to a person, it is something that brings back fond family memories, going with grandparents, going with brothers who are no longer with us, being with their kids, spending quality time, the moms who are tired of wrestling their kids in the zoo and walking and wanting that cool respite in the woods. It's been a golden goose for the zoo. It's always made money. Money hasn't been an issue. It's badly needed transportation option. We have limited parking. There's only so much space in our Washington Park. And so we need more transportation to get people from one end to the other. While there is a public shuttle, even that runs into trouble because there's so many backups on the roads that the cars just sit letting out fumes. So being able to take 720 people an hour from one end to the other is a real plus from an environmental perspective. It gives us a chance to educate the next generation. It's in a beautiful woods. We could talk about the environment and nature and the animals, and also the environmental impact of rail. Rail is one of the most, it is the most efficient and least impactful on the environment. And someday we have some plans to electrify so we can be even closer to carbon neutral. And this is a historic imperative. This is part of our heritage. It's part of our DNA in Portland, where the city came together and built this amazing railroad. Next slide. So we're the Friends of the Washington Park and Zoo Railway, fwpzr.org. It's a mouthful, it's unpronounceable. We have an online petition that we'd love to have you sign. We've got a website. We're collaborating. We're working in a collaborative mode. We've been working with Metro and the City of Portland and the community now for over 4 years. We're upping our game with some professional marketing, and we've got a new board. So our 2 volunteer groups merged in October. And so we've got some new leadership and new energy. And who knows, maybe we will help run the railroad. We will see. Next slide. We have amazing resources, volunteer resources at our fingertips on our Rolodex. So Rick Franklin Corporation, you may know of Rick doing real repairs on rail lines. He's walked our line, God bless him, 3 times. We've got Bill Burgle, a geologist. Gerald Fox, who's here, a civil engineer who worked on light rail. Annie Catugno from Metro, who's also here. We have the historic rail groups. The Rail Heritage Center have been incredibly supportive. They've helped us understand, what it takes to run a nonprofit and who to get involved. We've got local politicians, former city council members. We've got a trust foundation that's been coaching us. It's amazing. And this is the easiest ask. Several of us, Andy and Gerald and Jan, we were all at the Rail Heritage Center at the zoo handing out cards to make it publicly aware. We had about 15 seconds to do our story, and people were talking to us. This is the easiest sales job ever. People want the train back. We have passionate public and very energetic volunteers. Next slide. This is just some of our supporters. As I mentioned, we started with the Arlington Heights Neighborhood Association and the Sylvan Highlands Neighborhood Association. Those are political groups that are in neighborhoods in Portland. It's one of the special things about Portland's public access. We have funding to have activist groups within neighborhoods. We've got our own archaeologist. So every historic group needs their archaeologist. The 2 historic rail groups, I can't tell you, the Oregon Rail Heritage Foundation and the Pacific Northwest Chapter, National Railway Historic Society, Arlen Sheldrake, some of you probably know. Dale Burkholtz, BNSF has donated money. We've got architects and landscape architects, printing groups. We've got unions. We've got a lot of support. Next slide. We've been working with the government. It's 2 government bodies that have the train, and that doesn't make it easy. So with 2 large governmental bodies, one owning it, the other running it, we've had to have a lot of meetings, and it's not been fast. But we're persisting and continue to work with them. The latest push has been by Metro to create a task force that would include the city, and we're on board to do that and keep pushing forward to make this happen. Next slide. We did a tour of the line. We wanted our Metro President Lynn Peterson and the Zoo Director Heidi Ron to actually see where the issues are. So we gathered all of our experts. Shannon and Wilson provided at no cost one of their geotech experts on rail. Rick Franklin and several of his folks came. We had geologists, civic engineers, and rail heritage folks. And we did a great tour. And we had a little guy, Miller, who I happened to run into that morning. He and his dad were looking at the Forlorn station. And I asked him if he'd like to talk to the president of Metro to ask for it. And he came and did a speech. We had our architects talking. So that was a real high point for us. It took several years to make it happen. It finally happened. And then at that very meeting, we found out from Metro and the zoo that they had just done the financial analysis. And even though the long line, the Rose Garden Loop would make money, it would make slightly less money, and they were not going to support restoring it. Next slide. This is giving you some status of things that we've done to make this happen. So we hired Shannon and Wilson. We had help from Rick Franklin. We brought them in, their premier geotech engineering firm. They looked at all the crib walls. They did an analysis. We know what it takes to get this fixed. It is very minor in the world of real railroads. And this is a real railroad. The cost is going to be under $2 million. And it's very doable, very doable. Next slide. We also want our station to be ADA accessible. It's important for us that everybody can ride the line. So we got volunteer architects and landscape architects to do a study. It's in 2026 dollars we're planning out because it takes time to get things to happen. But we want to have ADA upgrades so that people that need to have a way to easily get into the train can do that instead of climbing up a hill. Next slide. We've been working with the city of Portland. Our Washington Park is a protected area. It's open space. It's also conservation zone. So to do some of the ADA accessibility things, we're going to need to probably take out a couple of trees. But we've worked with them. We've had a couple of conferences. We know it'll take time, but we believe that they'll be supportive because accessibility is also important. Next slide. Okay, these are photos of our rolling stock. It needs work. So while it's safe to operate, all the trains need work. You're seeing a picture of some of the rust on the bottom right. On the upper side, it's kind of see from the perspective, but that's actually a seat in the train. And then those are patches that are put on the floor and you can see rust. It's sad. And that's going to be costly, actually more costly than restoring the line. Next slide. We did track cleaning parties. Now, to get an idea of how crazy our volunteers are, we had 20 days in the months of January, February, and March in Portland, Oregon. It's our dry season, right? And we cleaned those tracks. We got rid of 10 years of ivy and blackberries. And yes, we could use no electronic devices. So we had to use crosscut saws and do it all by hand. And by Jove, we did it. We had multiple generations out there helping us. And it certainly was back to the 1959 sense of community and in pride in getting work done. And it was not easy work. Next slide. So the business case has been absolutely critical to this. My background is in business, and you know, if it was going to cost $100 million to restore the train with everything else going on in Portland, is that the right thing to do? Probably not. So we wanted an analysis done to be sure that what was needed to be raised to get this done, and that the train could be operating profitably. So finally, in May of this year, the zoo provided a financial analysis. And even in their own analysis, it showed that the zoo train would make money. It just wouldn't make as much money estimation as the short loop. We frankly believe they made some assumptions that probably aren't right. And we actually believe that the long line will make more money because the ridership was significantly higher when we had a long line. Now the train ride is only 6 minutes instead of 15 or 20. And so it's not much of a ride and you're paying good money for it. So we believe that the line can actually be more profitable. But even assuming that work needs to be done and assuming some negative assumptions from the zoo, it makes money. So we're quite confident that this can be an ongoing, profitable asset to the community. Next slide. We benchmarked other zoos. So we wanted to see what are the state of things in other places. So we talked to St. Louis and Omaha. There are two zoos in the United States, and they have top railways too. And we found that their train ride improves their visitor experience. So people who rate their zoos rate them higher if they've ridden the train. Their zoo trains are in their master plans for the zoos. Ours is not. Their trains are all profitable. And this was pre-COVID when we spoke to them. They were making 700,000 plus a year, and they had larger maintenance teams, more than double the size of ours. And they also had a lot more space to work on the trains. When they did the major expansion of some of the zoo exhibits back in 2013, they took out our major, we called it the snow shed, that had lots of space for maintenance. So that's gone. So it's very hard to do repairs inside the zoo now. So anyway, other zoos do this. They're a big asset for the zoo. They make it part of their experience. Next slide. So like I mentioned, every team should have an architect. So Melissa Darby, God bless her, she did all the work to get our train as a historic district on the National Register of Historic Places. So all of the rail stock, the line, the tunnel, engine house, it's now all part of a historic district. So the shortening that occurred in 2013 won't be happening again easily. In the photo, you can see that was back in 1959. John F. Kennedy was here to run for president, and anybody who came to Portland was taken to that train. Our Senator Newberger went to the Senate and read, it had to be a half an hour speech emphasizing the community engagement and how it brought people together and the civic pride and what an asset it was and what a real train it was for the city. So anyway, we are now on the historic register, and that will prevent certain kinds of deterioration from it happening again. Next slide. On public outreach, we've got a change.org petition, and we would love to have you sign it. It has over 40,000 signatures. Would love to have over 50,000 signatures. Change.org asks for money. You don't need to donate any money at all. Just sign our petition. We would love to have the signatures. And I mentioned that getting people to be involved, the Oregon Rail Heritage Center let us be there and hand out cards and actually give a little spiel at their Holiday Express. It is so easy to get people on board to support this. It is, I say it's easier than selling Girl Scout cookies. It's just so easy because people love it. Next slide. Our next steps, we're going to have a spring awareness campaign, probably linked to the zoo bond measure that we're not included in. We're going to push for inclusion because even though we're not mentioned in the zoo bond measure, there's still an opportunity when they go to allocate specific funds. So over the next 6 months, the zoo will be determining what exactly is in that measure. So there is a possibility that they could come around and put some money in. We're on board with the Metro Created Task Force. We're also partnering with the City of Portland. And so the city is very much in favor of bringing the train back. So we'll see if they can't help us exert some leverage on Metro. And we will continue to partner. We've been trying to play nice. We've been very disappointed by when we heard that the zoo was not going to endorse adding the line back when we found out that it was going to make money. To be honest, that was a major blow. But we will continue to work with them to try to make this happen. Next slide. There you can see our sad photos and our happy photos. So the one on top is the way the station used to look, and today it actually looks even worse than the bottom photo because it has a chain link fence and graffiti on it. So we're at fwpzr.org. We would love to have your support with your signatures on our petition. We are a nonprofit. If you want to support our marketing efforts, we're not raising money at this point for the train. We want to get the approval to do that and to bring it back successfully. But we are like a pit bull with a bone. This train is in some of our DNA, and we are going to do what it takes to bring it back. Next slide. There's our shameless appeal. If you use the QR code on the right, that'll take you to our website, and you'll see the place to sign the petition. And you can see a copy there of our website. We got a lot of neat history on it, by the way. For those of you who like the history, go to the history section. Our archaeologist did a lot of work and has some great documents out there. We even have our National Historic Register application out there. So Q&A, anybody? We are here.
Well, first off, Kathy and Trent, this is fascinating. I have to admit that I was severely negligent in my knowledge of the Washington Park and Zoo Railway, and I've learned a tremendous amount about what a cool thing that this could be again. So one of the questions I would ask, Kathy, is how did a nice person like you get mixed up with lions, tigers, and bears?
Okay, so the truth be told, I am not a native Oregonian. So I came from the Midwest, but I married a native Oregonian. So I'm naturalized. And my late husband was one of those kids who sold zoo bond tickets to get rides on the train and to support that train. So when we moved to Portland, Oregon in 1984, within 2 weeks of arriving, he made sure I got a ride on that zoo train and could see the train that he helped raise funds for and was proud of. He knew how special it was. And, you know, Portland's been in some rough times lately. You've probably, if you're not from here, you've probably heard it in the news. And this is something that's so easy to do. We know what it's going to take. We know we can raise the money, and you know, by gosh, I'm not going to let it go down on my shift.
All
So
right.
that's the story. And okay, I love trains. I'm from the Midwest.
There you go. Okay, now the truth starts coming out. So Kathy, do you have any members of your, you have some members of your group here, or are any of them interested in maybe saying a few things or amplifying a point? Or
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
yeah, I thought,
And,
you know, just unmute and say who you are.
Oh, let me put out a couple shout outs about Trent. You know, I showed those pictures of people working on the railway.
Mm-hmm.
Trent was one of those people who tirelessly came out, and so was Gerald, and so was Andy.
So Trent, you were a lumberjack?
Yeah, I was amazed at how easily that two-person crosscut saw worked. I just couldn't get over. We got through that huge log and nothing flat with a nice sharp saw, and yeah.
So the park's rules were no power tools? No
power tools at all. So it was all, you know, picks and shovels and choppers and saws and pruners and yeah. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to stop the screen share at this point. So we'll just go back to our panel, and at this point, let me do this.
Andy, do you want to say something?
Yeah, go ahead and unmute, say who you are, and tell us something interesting.
Hi, Andy Catugno. ex-Metro planning director for many, many years. All I would add is pulling together the funds to restore this thing is probably going to end up being some sort of public-private venture. We're not to the point yet of identifying who's going to pick up what share. But when the time comes, we need the enthusiasm that this kind of group expresses to go after the donors on the private side, and to influence the donors on the public side. So stand by.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andy. Jan Schaefer, can you say a few words? Jan is helping us with communications. Thank God, she's a professional.
Great. Hi, Jan. Welcome.
You're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I got to hold up my cue card.
Sorry.
There you are.
Here I am. Hi, it's great to hear Trent. Gosh, Trent was very active at the Rail Heritage Center where I'm also active. And I know he's still behind the scenes there. So this train may end up being run, Andy mentioned funded by a public-private partnership, but it may also end up being managed by a public-private partnership. And there's a number of our advisors who think we should just jump into that with both feet and move forward to take the train away from the governments and run it ourselves. And we're not ready to do that, but some hybrid of that might be down the road for us, and all the railroad people that have an interest can support it.
Okay, thanks, Jan. So I want to ask Steve Vent. Steve, could you tell these folks a little bit about your railroad, and maybe just to put you on the spot, why not, some of the differences and similarities between what you've heard today and your situation in the great state of Hawaii. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Everything that was said in their presentation rang very close to me. We are a nonprofit historical railroad. We operate on a section of track from the Oahu Railway. The state of Hawaii Transportation Department owns the track, and we're allowed to operate on it. They have been trying to, I'm going to be nice, trying to get rid of us for the last 20 years, 25 years. We go round and round with them. We get no support from anyone. We don't get any support from the federal government, the state, the city, nobody. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, like I said, it just parallels it unbelievably. They're currently trying to create a programmatic agreement to control the railroad a little more. One of the things they currently want to do is take our ability to repair the railroad. Now, there's absolutely nobody else in Hawaii that knows how to do that. We've only been doing it for 40 years, but now they're suddenly thinking that we don't know what we're doing. So it's the same kind of thing. We're fighting with them back and forth. We've had some support from the FRA, Federal Highways, but very little. But yeah, oh man, you stand by. If Oregon's anything like Hawaii, you're going to be fighting for a long time.
So Steve, just tell us a little bit, for the folks here that may not be familiar, give us a little bit of background about how big your railroad is, where it is, what you operate.
Okay. We're on the island of Oahu, which is where Honolulu is. We are west of Pearl Harbor in what's known as the Ewa Plain, the Ewa Coral Plain, and Ewa is EWA. It's not Ewa, it's Ewa. We operate on about 6.5 miles of track. There's about 13 or 14 miles of track total, but we operate on about 6.5. There was a bridge shortly after where we stopped that was illegally taken out by the Department of Transportation many years ago. And of course, trying to get that reinstalled is like pulling teeth. But we run trains on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're all narrated with a live narrator on board. We have our Holiday Express every year, which is a huge, huge seller. We usually sell that out in less than a day, about 1,700 seats in less than a day. We operate our main two engines are two 1944 Whitcomb diesel electric center cabs that used to belong to the Navy and ran there on those tracks. We have several other pieces of rolling stock. We have Mr. Dillingham, the guy who built the railroad in the 1800s. We have his personal car that's all restored. We put that on the train once a month. We have several non-operating steam locomotives. We have a couple other diesels that we occasionally use. We have 6 coaches that are ex-Army and Navy flat cars that we ran a bench down the middle and then eventually put a roof on it. And the ride's about an hour and a half. The 3 o'clock ride stop for ice cream at the Coalina Resort. Yeah, you gotta stop for ice cream,
Yeah, yeah, everybody likes that idea.
You can't, when we started that, it was unbelievable. Our ridership went from here through the roof in 2 weeks. We couldn't have enough room for the passengers. And then after COVID, everything's just been a complete topsy-turvy mess. We'll have weekends where the train's packed and we'll have weekends where there's 30 people on the train. So,
But you guys are recovering from COVID, aren't you? I mean, the trend's up, isn't it?
oh, the train runs.
Yeah.
We're not making as much money as we used to, but yeah, the train runs.
Okay, all right. And Kathy, I've got somebody else here that is familiar with running trains in Oregon. Steve Howes, talk to us a little bit about what you've heard and how this compares with what you've done at the Sumter Valley.
Well, again, my name's Steve Howes. I'm with the Sumter Valley Railroad, and we're located outside of Baker City, Oregon. Our railroad is our main line is about 5.5 miles long. We have about 1 mile of sidings and yard trackage to go along with it. We're an all-volunteer organization. We operate, when they're running, 2 steam locomotives. One is a 1915 40-ton Heisler, and we have a 1920 Alco Mikado, 120 tons. Our biggest difficulty, I think, is one is maintaining our equipment and physical plant, I guess. Given our location, it's just very hard to recruit members that are willing to make the effort to, one, come over there and stay and work up through the positions and attracting riders. We've gone from operating pretty much every weekend during the summer between Memorial Day and the end of September, plus we have special runs. We've had to cut back some, but for the most part, our weekends, our ridership is pretty good, especially on the holiday trains. I wish we had the support, both in terms of people with experience and knowledge that you folks have. We're always in a bind financially, and we've had some good luck obtaining grants and made some strides in that regard. Even after the railroad there at the zoo in Washington Park has been, or part of it has been inoperable for quite a period of time. I wished a lot of our track looked like yours. That's been a big problem for us is again, maintaining our equipment and right away. I do have one memory that I guess I would like to share. Back in the 1980s, I lived in the Portland area, and I was a member of the Pacific Northwest chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. Every year we had a picnic dinner, potluck dinner at Washington Park, and we were given unlimited train rides on the zoo train, and they were running both the zoo liner and the steam locomotive. And probably my best memory of the zoo railway is when we were getting ready to leave, it was getting dark. And one other person, I can't remember their name, got to ride on the tender of the steam locomotive from Washington Park over to the engine shed. And it was just a great experience to ride through the big trees there, watching the headlight and the sparks. And it was just a great ride, probably one of the best cab rides I've ever had. So it was a great time. And I hope you are able to pull this project off and get it running again.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thanks, Steve. That was yeah, very enjoyable. Gosh, I could just see it kind of clicking along in the woods there. That's great. So,
And we also have Gerald Fox here from our team. Gerald, do you want to say anything? Gerald was also on the crew that plucked ivy and blackberries. He and I climbed down a 70-foot bank, and neither of us are young, to get down to the line at the zoo with a 34-degree bank. He's amazing.
yeah,
You're
go
on
ahead
mute,
and
Gerald.
unmute, and we'd love to hear from you. Go ahead, please. There we go.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been doing this kind of thing for my whole life. I was much involved in restoring the narrow gauge railways in Wales in the UK in my youth. And the lines were derelict in the 1940s. And there was now 40 miles of 2-foot gauge track running right across the Snowdon Peninsula in Wales. And the railway is very successful. They brought locomotives from South Africa to replace the railway, which had completely been dismantled. They weigh 60 tons running on 2-foot gauge track. They're very impressive machines. Going to the context of this project, I think a couple of things that weren't mentioned was the importance of the Zoo Railway as being symbolic of coming back from the dereliction that has afflicted so much of Portland today. This is very symbolic, and the zoo's failure to deal with it is also symbolic. And I think we need to keep harping on this is part of the Portland comeback. And one of the reasons for making it part of the Portland comeback is that it helps the local businesses. People who come here as tourists and do things here. It's one more thing to do, and it attracts the people who don't do some of the other more common things like hiking in the mountains. Many of us are too old to be doing that still, but the Zoo Railway is a great thing to take kids on and to expand the activities that cause people to come and spend time in Portland and to patronize the hotels and the businesses here. And I think this is really important. It's been very effective on the Willamette Shore, which I'm fairly heavily involved in. And the grants that have come from the tourist departments to fund the various projects that are going on, which right now with the electrification of the 2 streetcars with batteries, one of which was completed about a month ago, and it's now running under test. And hopefully will be running in public service this summer.
Well, while I've got you on the line, tell me a little bit about what you're working on this. What is that? The Willamette shoreline, Willamette coastline? What are you doing there?
It's the Willamette shoreline is an abandoned Southern Pacific branch that ran from Portland to Lake Oswego.
Oh,
And when the Southern Pacific closed it in 1984, the local governments realized that that was a pretty valuable right-of-way, and that the right-of-way should be preserved. And since most of it is on easements, it has to be preserved by running a train on it. And so they bought the line for the unbelievable price of, I think it was $800,000. They bought 6 miles of railroad with the track on it. And another 400,000, the Southern Pacific agreed to extend the track from the junction into a closer area in downtown Lake Oswego. And they tried not to do that, and there was a threat of a lawsuit, and then they realized they could do it after all. And so the track was extended into Lake Oswego. for a grand total of 1,200,000.
So
So,
what
so
was
the,
none of this? Why don't I hear about trains on this? Or am I just ignorant? You can say,
well, they've had some trouble with trestles last year. There were 3 major trestles along the river, and they were built in the 1920s, and they were condemned so that the train cannot run over the trestles. So for the past 2 years, they've only been running a 2-mile stub of the 6-mile line. However, our Congressman Earl Blumenauer was able to get $4 million inserted into the current infrastructure bill to fix the trestles and one of the grade crossings. And this work is starting this week. It's actually happening. It's supervised by TriMet, who is the responsible party for the work. And by the end of the summer, the whole thing should be back in running order.
so then what runs up to, I mean, is it a passenger I mean, what is it?
Yes.
I-
There
Freight?
were two streetcars which were built for TriMet in the 1990s when they needed to run light rail through the historic districts. And to mitigate for that, the project included building 4 streetcars of the traditional style. And these streetcars ran on the Max tracks for a number of years and eventually got squeezed out because they didn't meet ADA, the handicapped access, and they were too small, and so they kind of got in the way. So 2 of them went to St. Louis, and they run on the streetcar system, the new streetcar system in St. Louis, and the other 2 went to Willamette Shore to run on this railway. And they're run by the Oregon Electric Railway Historical Society, who fund the operation with fares, and the maintenance of the line and improvements are funded by the consortium, which is the various local governments, Lake Oswego, Portland, Metro, TriMet, who own the line. So
Interesting.
they should be running, the operation runs on weekends through the summer and at Christmas. And it's basically funded from the fares and run by volunteers.
Wow, very interesting. And Ron McCoy, I see your picture. Do
Yes.
you want to make a comment here? You must know something about this, Ron. Go ahead, please.
Unmute.
I know, gotta unmute. It's coming. Hang on, folks.
There we go. Unmute my audio. Well, thanks for the great presentation, by the way. Fantastic. So I'm a former president of the NRHS chapter down here and also on the board of directors and also involved with Oregon Rail Heritage Foundation. So, but yes, there you go. There's one of the 2 streetcars. This was just this last week where they rolled out doing the tests of the batteries. And I'm certainly we've also run excursions on that line, and of course we're waiting for an opportunity to run a little more than 2 miles. So just thanks again for everybody and your participation today. And I just wanted to share a picture for those of you that weren't aware of this little hidden secret.
Oh,
Okay, well, thank you. And then George Foster's got his hand up. George, go. I've got to unmute. And George is going to unmute. There
There
he
we
is.
go.
Hi, George.
Okay. So for the gentleman from the UK, my grandparents from both sides of the family are from various spots there. One's from Nottingham, probably ran around with Robin Hood. And my paternal grandmother's from Glasgow. And my mother is from Aberdare. So I find that very interesting to get someone over here that is from the old country, so to speak. Also, the folks that are doing the Oregon Rail Heritage Foundation, I just asked them to say hi to Uncle Doyle if he still hangs around. And when my kids were little and I'd get an occasional ride on the 4449, when we were at the Roundhouse, they'd see Doyle, and so he became Uncle Doyle to them. And so now they're in their 40s, but they still remember that and everything. And I used to see Doyle occasionally through the joint friendship with Cliff Cox, if anybody remembers him. Chooch used to fire the 49 on some of the trips, including the Tough Guys trip. So little reference there, but I don't get down to Portland very often, and I don't even know where the Washington Park Zoo is, so I need a little guidance.
So how do we get there from here? Or from Hermiston, Oregon, in George's case?
So the Oregon Zoo is just off of Highway 26. It intersects with I-5, and there's an actual zoo exit. And
Is that where you have to go across the Willamette on the big bridge and then try to get to it?
yeah, so you could if you're coming down probably south, then you'd take 405, and then 405 has an exit off of that to 26.
Yeah, I
Yes.
come from the east end. I'm up the dry side of Oregon.
Oh, okay, okay, yes.
Yeah, we don't rust, we tan up here, so.
There you go. Ah, yes, yes.
You know, it is, but I'm originally
It's humorousness.
yeah, I'm originally a West Sider from Tacoma and Seattle area, so used to run trains into Portland, but it was only on layover that I'd be there rather than for any length of time.
Versus being based out of there. Exactly.
Yep.
So
I was based out of Seattle, and so I worked for Uncle Pete's Rabbit Ranch there at, otherwise known as UP.
all right. Gordon Glattenberg, go ahead, Kathy.
In the category of shameless plugs, we're planning to have an event to get more word out about the zoo train at the Oregon Rail Heritage Center on Saturday, April 20th. They're going to have an Earth Day weekend where we can put out lots of promotion about our efforts, and you can ride one of their historic trains. It won't be one of the steam engines, but it'll still be a nice train, and you can look at the 44449. So if you're down here in that day, come on down.
Great, thank you. That's good to know. Gordon Glattenberg from Santa Clarita, California. Do you have that image handy that you could share?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Do you have that image handy that that you just emailed me? That could you share that image?
It'll take me a moment to pull it up.
Okay, well,
Talking about the one from Las Vegas.
yeah, the one from Las Vegas. So we'll
Okay.
see if we can.
Let me see if I can.
It's worth sharing, folks. Let me just say, Kathy, you'll like to see this. And Gordon, you send me this stuff in a meeting, and then I'm like, oh, well, now we got to look at it. So we'll see if we can get it. If not, we'll save it for next time.
We do know people too. So Jeff Honeyman is integral. He is the only full-time employee on the Zoo Railway. And we can find out when he's actually working and running the train and things. So we do have connections if you want a special ride.
There you go. There you go. No, this has been this has been fascinating. So and we're getting, we're a little quarter after the hour, so we tend to, start kind of winding things down. I would say, Jan, you were just unlucky today because normally there'd be 2 or 3 other felines for your cat to hiss at. Yeah. We've got a couple of different cat lovers that are regular guests on our program. So, George, go ahead. Got on mute.
All I got to say is meow. So
there
you
got
go.
it. All right.
That's right.
Very good. Gordon, if you don't have it handy, it's not a big deal.
Let's see if I can bring it up here.
All right.
Can I do share screen?
Go ahead and share a screen. Here we go. Drum roll, folks. If I had the Doc Severinsen Orchestra, we'd have a little drum roll.
Oh,
Oh,
Now,
Las Vegas. Okay.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
so when did you take this picture, Gordon?
Let's see, it was 1957.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of a story there. In January, I attended a consumer electronics show in Las Vegas and stayed at the Plaza Hotel. The location of that hotel is right here in the picture where the picture was taken. So the hotel took over that site.
Wow.
That is Awesome. Any chance you would share it with us so we could use it in our presentations?
Sure.
Sure.
Just
I
get-
will connect you guys after the call and Gordon, I appreciate your drum, you know, it's just great having you know, Doc Severinsen in the orchestra that could find the right tune for the right occasion. So thank you, Gordon, for that. And then George, and then we're gonna start winding things down.
With that photo from Gordon there, you can see the facsimile E6 locomotive protruding from the top of the depot there. And so it would be interesting if Liberace was there that day, because he came in on that train another time. So
Interesting. Yeah, it
Yep.
looks, I don't see the big crowd and on this occasion, but remind me, Gordon, and I'll introduce you, I'll send an email to you and Kathy, and then I'm sure that they would love to be able to look at this iconic photo from 1957. So Trent, just so that you know, I was +2 at that point. So
Okay.
thank you,
Boy,
Gordon.
we're the same exact age.
Oh yeah, 1955 was one of the great years of human history. That's what I like
Yeah,
to tell people.
Okay.
So folks, I want to thank Kathy and Trent today for a very enjoyable program and for your friends coming along and sharing some of their stories and anecdotes too. So it's just great having you. And what I'm undoubtedly going to do is shamelessly beg you to come back someday and tell us about how things are going. And Ron, an invite to you to talk about the trolley operation. I had no idea that this even existed, but I do know, based on what's going on at Niles Canyon, that you have to keep trains running on those easements, otherwise it reverts back to the previous landowner. And they're putting, Niles Canyon's putting track all the way back to Pleasanton to keep that unpleasantry from occurring. So
Indeed.
otherwise, folks, I'm going to say, you know, it's 2:20 and it's probably time to wrap things up. I want to thank Kathy and Trent again for a great presentation, and
You,
we're going to
Jonathan.
keep this Oregon thing rolling with Oregon Rail Heritage Center in 2 weeks, and then Trent, you'll be back for another exciting presentation on April 10th.
I think it's going to be my road trip to Reno.
Road trip to Reno, folks.
I think I like that one. So it's, you know, getting there and coming back and the sites along the way. Basically, it's the Nevada State Railroad Museum in Virginia and Truckee operation.
Fantastic.
I think we'll do that one.
Okay. Well, everybody, thanks again for everybody being here and being part of the program. And if you were new, you can always contact us at info PNRARCHIVE, PNRAarchive.org, and we can add you to our mailing list for the program in the future. Craig Reese, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Craig. What's new?
Yeah, I just wondered, could you possibly put a link to your petition in the chat?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Very well done. Yes, very well seen.
That's all.
Yeah, okay. No, good. I've just given her a second to do that. So that is a really great suggestion. So again, you know, while we're waiting for Kathy to put that into the chat for Craig, and, you know, if we've all got a spare minute of time, why not sign there? You know, I'm not a big petition signer, but this might be a good one that we should sign up for, you know, to support that zoo railway. I mean, geez, I mean, that's not A versus B. That's just something that we should all support. So
And
just go ahead and say it.
Change.org will shamelessly ask you for money, but do not give it.
And again, it's FWPZR is what I've written down. Am I even close on that one, Kathy?
Yes, you got it perfectly.
Okay. FWP. This is like the ophthalmologist. FW.
Well, it's Friends of Washington Park Zoo Railway, so
I
it
get
kind of makes
that,
yeah.
Yeah,
But I always type it wrong when I type it for some reason.
Oh no, yeah, you
And,
gotta be
and
careful with that stuff.
you can actually find us by typing in Friends of the Washington Park and Zoo Railway.org too. You can put in the long thing But the,
You can put, yeah, usually it finds it. Yeah.
So again, thanks, folks. This is a great program, and I look forward to inviting you back and finding out all the good things that you guys have done since we'll have talked last. So if I got anything more for the good of the order, now's a good time. Going once, going twice. And I want to thank everybody for being here. Have a great day. Welcome to spring, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. So I will just say bye for now.
thank you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thanks.
Great program. Thanks, Trent, you guys.
Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. So I'll get this downloaded and sent off to you guys once it sort of, collates like Jello, on my computer. So, all right. Anyway, have a great day, everybody, and hasta la vista.